How's it going, everyone? Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. Now, one of my frustrations about American society is that we have a very limited and narrow view of the world. And our understanding of world events, why things happen, is so limited. We are fed a narrative by our government, by our mainstream media, and for the most part, Americans believe it. And they don't ask questions. They don't dig deeper to try to find a greater understanding. They accept it at face value and support whatever nonsense our government is pushing. And this Russia-Ukraine war is a perfect example. We would be led to believe that in 2022 for no reason at all, the evil, crazy, maniac Vladimir Putin decided to invade Ukraine to recreate the Soviet Union. That's what we were told, and many people believe that on both sides of the political aisle, Republican and Democrat. And of course, if you do some research and you look a little deeper, you will find out the situation is much more complicated. And it goes back to the 90s after the collapse of the Soviet Union, the United States involvement with Russia, with Yeltsin, and trying to democratize Russia in a Western fashion, which failed in part because of Putin. And we have spent the last 20 years trying to get Putin out of power. And we decided that we could use Ukraine as a proxy in this attempt, which is why we supported the coup in 2014 and started giving weapons to Ukraine. So the situation is much more complicated. It's not black and white. And Putin, even if you disagree with what he did, had legitimate grievances. So with that in mind, let's pivot over toward Taiwan and China. I can guarantee you that 99.9% of Americans have no historical understanding of the background of what's going on there. None at all. And if they did, they might be a little more careful about supporting our current U.S. policy against China and our U.S. policy concerning Taiwan. And so I want to give a little background about Taiwan, and this is limited. If you're Chinese, if you're Taiwanese, you know way better than I do. So this is not for you. This is for Americans who have no understanding of what's going on there and who are blindly just saying, yeah, support Taiwan, give them weapons, and let's go after China. This is for them, people who have no understanding or any idea of what is really going on there. So I want to give some background to show you how complicated and complex these issues are and why we need to be more careful before jumping in support of something. So Taiwan was part of the Qing dynasty from the 17th century up until 1895 when Japan invaded Taiwan. And so it was part of that dynasty for over 200 years. And then the Japanese come in and they invade. Now, China had a revolution in 1911. And in the early 20th century, a lot of countries were having these revolutions against the old government, the old system. In China, it was against the Qing dynasty. And in Russia, it was against the czars in 1917. And of course, the United States wanted to see the czar fall. And they also wanted to see a more Western government come to China. So in 1911, we have the Chinese Revolution, and the Republic of China comes into power for a while, because later there was a civil war in China between the Republic of China, the ROC, and the communists led by Mao. And of course, again, we were on the side of the Republic of China because we are anti-communist. Just like we were against the Soviet Union for being communist, and we supported people against the Soviet Union. So we have this Chinese Civil War between 1927 and 1949. There was a pause while both sides together fought the Japanese, but after the Japanese surrendered, surrendered in 1945, Taiwan then became part of China again, and the civil war between the two sides, the communists and the ROC, continued until 1949, where the communists won and the ROC fled to Taiwan. Now, when this happened, both sides, both governments, the ROC and the People's Republic of China, the Communist Party, both declared themselves to be the legitimate rulers of Taiwan and of China. And ever since then, we've sort of had this stalemate where it wasn't completely resolved. Now, in 1973, I believe, the UN went from recognizing the Republic of China to recognizing the communist government, and they booted the ROC out of the UN. And of course, also that was when Nixon changed policy toward China and started up relations with China in the early 70s, which has led us to where we are now, with where the United States has supported China in the sense of economic development. We have a lot of involvement in China as far as our corporations and using the Chinese manufacturing. So our relationship with China changed in the 70s. But again, this issue with Taiwan wasn't officially resolved on both sides. And the Chinese policy has been Taiwan is part of China. And then Taiwan, you have two factions saying, well, one side says we want to be independent. And the other side says, well, at some point there needs to be some sort of unification, maybe like Hong Kong, where we have autonomy, but we're part of China. And so the question for us Americans is, how much business is it of ours to be involved in that? This, like Ukraine, Russia, is a complicated issue, and it really amounts again to a civil war, literally here in a situation where you had two sides fighting for China. One side won, one side flees to Taiwan, and you have this impasse now for dozens of years. So again, does the United States need to militarily get involved and force the issue? Or should we try to hang back and say, you guys figure it out peacefully? And up until now, the Chinese haven't really been aggressive on this issue until, again, the United States steps in and starts saber rattling. We start talking about giving more weapons to Taiwan, and we make it a big deal. We have Pelosi go to Taiwan, and we start rattling the hornet's nest. And then we get a reaction from China, and we go, man, these Chinese are so aggressive. Why are they doing this? Again, ignoring our own actions and sort of making the situation worse with our behavior. And so right now in Ukraine, things are going badly for the Ukrainians. They're getting slaughtered. Certainly Russia is taking a hit, but Russia has the manufacturing capabilities as far as their military to win this conflict. They have the people. And at some point, the United States will back away and Russia will get what it gets. And for the people in Taiwan, my question to you is, do you want to play the same game that you're seeing in Ukraine? Do you want to be the proxy that the United States uses against China? And here's the thing, and what blows my mind, it's not a secret. We say openly, we need to limit the rise of China economically and militarily. How do we do that? First step, Taiwan. Let's use Taiwan as a way to press this issue. Same game plan. It's so obvious. So do you want to play Taiwan like Ukraine, which means destruction? And so, again, the point of this video, complicated issues going back 100 years. It didn't just pop up today out of nowhere. All of a sudden, Taiwan, China. No, no. This goes back years, and it's very complicated. And dealing with this situation should be done through diplomacy on all sides in order to find a solution. But we've made it clear in the United States, talking, no, we don't do that. We have a position, and either you capitulate to our position or we keep on pushing it until we have conflict. And what we're doing right now kind of reminds me of what Germany did during World War II, where they had the one front, and then they had Operation Barbarossa, where they attacked the Soviets, opening up two fronts. And at that point, they were doomed to lose. They couldn't fight two battles at one time. And here we are, the United States. We have one front against Russia and Ukraine, and here we are, while losing that one, starting one here in Taiwan with China. Here's the problem. We're not going to win this. We simply can't. The situation has changed. Our carrier fleets, they work good against third world countries, against Afghanistan, where we can fly in and bomb and leave, against countries with hypersonic weapons, nuclear weapons. Our force projection in these areas is not going to be enough to win. They're going to get blown up and we're going to lose. And if that happens, the question is, does this become nuclear? If we start a direct confrontation, how long before we blow up the entire planet? And that's my concern in both of these countries. And honestly, I don't know how this ends. Will the Chinese be like Russia and be very careful about escalation in order to not cause a larger conflict? I don't know. Hopefully they will. But we simply don't know. And with the people in D.C., Washington, D.C., the neoconservatives, they are capable of anything. Things that you think it's common sense. What I'm saying here as far as this issue with nuclear war, but apparently they're not perturbed by that. They press on, no brakes. They have their world vision, and they will not give it up. And in the past, when great empires fell, there wasn't nuclear weapons. Except, I guess the exception would be the Soviet Union. The internal collapse still there. We're collapsing, but we're doing it in a way where we're actually creating wars and creating direct confrontations, potentially. A little different than the Soviet Union. And I think our hubris, our pride, is also a little different than the Soviets. We really, truly believe we are the exceptional country on this planet. If you've been to America, you talk to Americans, we're good people. We're cheerful, but we are pretty arrogant about who we think we are as a country. And the one thing I've had to do as an American, looking at our foreign policy the last several decades and starting to acknowledge some of the bad things we've done, is to go, we're a great country and I love our Constitution, but we're not better than anybody else. Other countries have value and they have their own right to self-determination and to live as they want. But we in America, we think everybody falls in line behind us. And we are so arrogant in that viewpoint that my concern is that we're going to be so arrogant and so unwilling to let that go that we will push nuclear war in order to try to stave that off, rather than to accept the fact the world has changed. It is now multipolar, and there is a place at the table for Russia, for China, and for other countries to sit in parity as equals with the United States. That's inevitable. And if we, the United States, don't accept that, we're going to keep starting proxy wars all over the world until one day it becomes a direct confrontation and we blow the entire world up. And that's my concern. And it's a valid concern because, again, we have very, very crazy people in charge in Washington, D.C. Well, that's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.